little lazy, in my opinion. So Buddy is staying for the night. He calls his wife to let him know that he's in a house and okay. And she's upset with him for some reason because he couldn't get out in the middle of a hurricane. I'm not entirely sure about her motivations. But he stays the night. Nicolas Cage drinks some alcohol and passes out, as you do. And the lady, Fancy, that's her name, she's getting even more flirtatious with Buddy. And we learn that ever since she was a little kid, she wanted a big family. She is unable to have kids, though, and so she's upset. And that does come up later in the worst way possible. So she tries to, do a little something with Buddy. He doesn't want to, of course, because he's married and has a kid. And keep in mind about that important character trait for a bit, because it is completely ruined in a few minutes. She pushes him down the ground and, using her stiletto, manages to pop his button and zipper off on his pants. But Nicolas Cage hears something, goes upstairs just outside of their door, and then walks away. And then the scene ends. There's nothing to it. They added a whole bunch of stuff to happen and didn't act on any of it. Nicolas Cage burst in through the door. Buddy didn't push her off. The lady didn't say, "I'm gonna kill you." Like, nothing happened in that scene. And so there was no real interest in seeing it. And in fact, having that scene ruins the film in a little bit. But for now, Buddy falls asleep. And all this while, throughout this entire movie, there have been scenes that are cutting back to Buddy covered in blood at a police station. And Kelsey Grammer is there. And he's not a psychiatrist like beloved TV show Frasier or Cheers. Instead, he is a detective and also has a not good Southern accent. It's more Savannan than Southern. And he says, "You know what? I know you're a God-fearing man, and I also know that you did it." Now, this guy is a pretty bad detective because he's not listening to anything Buddy's saying. Buddy is saying all this stuff like, "I didn't kill anyone, these guys are insane, and I have proof." And he's just saying, "Nuh-uh, partner, I know you are the killer, and you literally cannot change my mind." And if you get to the point of that when you're a detective, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's just compromising your ability to do your job, and that's kind of his issue. But that is kind of boring because we just saw what happens. And you can do that. There have been films where we see what's happening while an interview is happening or a interrogation is happening. And as long as the stuff that they're talking about is interesting, then that can work completely fine. It can even work good for the film. But in this case, when he says, "Yeah, I was on the couch and I was sleeping," ooh, and then it cuts back to the scene and he's on the couch sleeping, then that's not interesting. We don't care about the minutiae of his activities there. We want to see why he's covered in blood. We want to see why Nicolas Cage is always angry. We don't care about how many times he got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. We care about the excitement of the film. And the film is so hesitant to show you the good parts of the film that could possibly be there. Instead, it's just showing you the boring details of the film. And you never want to do that as a filmmaker. It cuts back to in the house with Nicolas Cage and the lady and Buddy. And Nicolas Cage is crying a bit. And he's like, man, oh man, my wife has blood cancer. And she's going to die. I want you to kill her. And in exchange, I'll give you $20-something thousand. And he's like, all right, I'll do it. And he goes up to his wife. She's singing Strange Fruits by Billie Holiday. It's a good song, and it does have some powerful symbolism to it, but it doesn't make sense in the context of this film. Like, there's no race issues happening in here. I feel like if they wanted to do a better symbolism, allegory songs, there are some other ones for like lying and deceit. It's just a weird detail to include such a heavily metaphorical song, a song with powerful symbolism and imagery, and it's nothing related to the film that it's in, or the scene that it's in, or being sung about. And the Francie lady even mentions that there's something odd that a white man wrote it. And it just doesn't apply to what this film is about, to this film's symbolism and metaphors and allegories and stuff like that. It just doesn't make sense as a component of this film. And remember before when Buddy was so adamant about not compromising his marriage and not, doing something with the Francie lady. Well, I guess all it took was her being in a bubbly bath to change his mind, because he sleeps with her. And then she finds out that he was hired by her husband to kill her. And she says that she ain't got no blood cancer. I don't even know if that's a thing. And then the scene ends. It cuts back to the police interview. And he says, so you're telling me he hired you to kill her? And she said she wasn't sick? And then he says, yes. And Kelsey Frazier is like, man. And then the scene ends. They had so many pointless inclusions to the film that whenever it changes, the plot, the momentum, the story comes to a grinding halt. And it takes you out of the film so quickly. Francie and the Buddy go downstairs. Nicolas Cage is like, whoa, 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 what? She's still alive? Man, what's happening? And then she stabs his hand to a wooden fence post that's inside the house to protect them from the hurricane. And he pulls it out. And she must be either really weak or he must be really strong, because he slaps her and she passes out completely. Like, I don't think... If you look at Nicolas Cage's physique in this film, he definitely doesn't look strong enough to slap anyone unconscious, no matter how many times he hits them. And she doesn't look frail or small. She's normal size, normal height. And it's mostly used for plot purposes so that she can't help fight during the scene. Buddy eventually tussles with Nicolas Cage. He knocks him out, ties him up to a staircase. And Nicolas Cage says, hey, if you want to see something really messed up, you should go look down in our basement. They mentioned that before that, they got something in their basement, something evil. And here's another problem with the movie. We already know that there is something going on with them. There's no mystery. We saw Nicolas Cage shoot a man in the back, and we saw the lady acting creepy with the Girl Scouts. If you want to make them seem suspicious, but not totally confirm our suspicions, then don't show Nicolas Cage shooting a man in the back and then never mention it again. You have to create some sense of mystery in the film if you want audiences to be engaged. But they don't do that. They create an atmosphere of tension and then never do anything with it. Because, oh man, I wonder what's going to happen with this robber. Oh, he shot them. And then for the rest of the film, whenever Nicolas Cage mentions something ominous like, yeah, I guess you could say, I really hate robbers, then there's nothing ominous about it because we know he hates robbers. He shot one in the first 30 seconds of the film. There's a balance that needs to be struck, and Stephen Camporelli didn't make any attempt to balance it. He saw the scales and then slapped one of them and then said, boom, that's Grand Isle. Wrap it up, boys. We're done here. Francie starts shooting at Buddy. She unties Nicolas Cage. They make some boring dialogue like, hey, why'd you gotta do that? And she says, oh, baby, I was just messing around. Stuff we don't need to hear because we can assume that based on the movie that we've seen that they might be doing something, together, some sort of con, considering the fact that they've shot people and acted creepy towards Girl Scouts. But Buddy eventually goes down to the basement, and there's the robber. He was shot, but is being kept alive with an IV tube. And Buddy manages to escape from the house after being covered in blood and gets arrested by the police for murder. And then the past is caught up with the present. We find out everything that happened at last night, but so does the police, and so do we as the audience. And then when the police go to Nicolas Cage's house because Buddy saw the dress of a girl that went missing a while ago, there's no, tension because we know that they did it. We know that they shot a man and kept him in their basement. And they didn't try to hide it at all. They didn't make Buddy seem like an unreliable narrator so we would question whether or not he was telling the truth or not. They didn't make Nicolas Cage and Francie appealing characters so that we would trust them as opposed to Buddy. It's very matter of fact. And then when they try and play it off like, ooh, we're being so secretive, you don't know if what happened or not. When they don't make any attempt to hide the truth, then there's no point in trying to say that there is some trickery happening. So officers go to the house. They look in the basement. They all go one by one into the basement for some reason. And they leave one officer alone with Nicolas Cage and Francie. And I don't know why you would ever do that. There was no sign that the other two police officers couldn't handle what was in the basement. There was no struggling noises. There were no gunshots, no screams. I don't know why you would ever leave one police officer alone with two potential suspects. And then